gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my ranking of my least favourite to two favourite James Bond films starring Sean Connery as James Bond. So I'll be ranking the 6 Sean Connery Bond films here. So, yeah, well, the official ones. I'm not going to count in Never Say Never Again in this ranking. I'll put it as an honourable / dishonourable mention. I say honourable / dishonourable mention because it's technically an honourable mention, but it's not really a film I'm that keen on, so that's why it's also dishonourable. So that's why it's both.
I just could be the woman to take you and make you never say never again. Never say never again. Never say never again. Never say never again.
Honourable because I'm bringing this up, dishonourable because it's not really that I'm not really a fan of it, so it's both. I'll also say at the end where I would put it well, I'm doing the 6 official, but I'll also say where I'd slot it in after my recap, where I'd slot it in that ranking. But the films we will be taking a look at are Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, and Diamonds Are Forever. We're skipping On Her Majesty's Secret Service because that's George Lazenby's. Okay, let's get started with number 6. Okay, number 6, for a while was a pretty popular film. However, over the last decade, some people have been coming out and saying, actually, it's not that good. And I have to agree because, well, for me, the plot is fine. A bit complicated, a bit draggy in places. But, you know, fine. It's not as good as the ones that came before or after. Or some of them anyway. But I think it would have been fine as a normal Bond film. However, the fucking editing and some pretty weak direction in terms of cinematography. This film just was poorly put together. I mean, the script, I don't think was terribly bad. Not at least it was fine. But the way the rest of it was put together... Oh, fuck, shit. What the hell went wrong with this one? This is, of course, Thunderball.
He looks at this world and wants it all. So he strikes like Thunderball.
Before we get started, it's worth noting that this one is the one that's caused the most problems of the film series. The books and the film series. Casino Royale would be the close second, by the way. With the whole Jack Whittingham, Kevin McClory, Ian Fleming lawsuit thing and the whole history behind that. And Kevin McClory trying to get his rights on what he believes, what he created. Which includes Spectre, the organisation, Blofeld's the character, and pretty much most the plot of Thunderball, more or less, I suppose, including most of the characters. So to avoid him making a rival Bond film with his rights, Alcazar Broccoli and Harry Saltzman decided to team up with him for Thunderball, with McClory as part of that deal being the sole producer, with Saltzman and Broccoli being executives. And overseeing the production, like how Alcazar Broccoli would with GoldenEye, making sure things went smoothly on the last film he ever made. Whilst Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli produced it. With Thunderball, however, it seems like, although there was 3 people who really wanted to make this film, Kevin McClory wanted to make this film because he's got the rights to it, he's got the story, he's got the characters. Alcazar Broccoli and Harry Saltzman, they want a Thunderball film in their series. They want an official in their what would be the official Eon-produced James Bond series. They want Thunderball in that series, and you've got probably the audience wanting Thunderball, the film, at some point. So you've got these people wanting it made, but when they do make it, the final product just ends up terribly. I don't know what went wrong. Peter Hunt, out of his first 5 films, he does a fantastic job, well, mostly fantastic job with 4 of his 5 films that he edited. Dr. No, apart from a couple of stupid jump cuts, was greatly edited. From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, brilliantly edited, especially From Russia with Love, where that was a bit of a mess, production-wise, and it was pretty much saved in the edit. And Goldfinger was an edit masterpiece, and Unit Twice went back to being a very Goldfinger-esque edited film. They were both brilliantly edited. But with this film, it may not necessarily have been completely Hunt's case. Fault. It may also have been down to Terence Young, the director, and maybe the cinematographers. They just didn't do a very good job in filming and editing this film in places, especially the underwater scenes where it just goes on and on and on. It's so slow and boring. The underwater scenes are greatly choreographed, but they just go on and on. And then we get the final action scene, which is just fucking insane. Oh, God, it's poorly edited, poorly executed, it's all over the place. And there's so many terrible edits throughout the film, and so many white. You even get a wipe from one scene with the Disco Volante, got a shot of the Disco Volante on the seat, and then you wipe to it arriving in port. I don't think you could have had. I don't think you needed that middle shot in the three I described. But if you are going to have it, at least have some better editing, and it at least gives that shot some more time between the wipes, because it felt a very short shot just for seeing a boat on some water, just travelling across water. It's like people wanted to make this film, but they didn't have the heart or effort to make it the best film they possibly could, like Goldfinger, or From Russia with Love, or Dr. No, or some of the other films later down the line, like Majesty's Secret Service, Spy Who Loved Me, Goldfinger, Casino Royale, Skyfall, or even some of the other ones. It's just ended up like a big bloody mess. And this is the one that's called. This is the story that causes pretty much half the legal right problems Eon has to deal with until 2013. The other half usually going with Casino Royale or financial legal battles. It's not every single problem that they have to deal with. Every film's got their own individual problems that may or may not kickstart a chain reaction later down the line. But certainly this is the biggest one that created the biggest chain reaction down the line. And I'm thankful that they got the rights back to the filmmakers of Eon Productions got the Thunderball and Blofeld and Spectre rights back in 2013 so that the whole mess could be wrapped up. Even if they were a bit too eager to use them once they did get them, and that's where we get the Spectre film from, 2015 Spectre. So they may have been a bit eager to use it after getting the rights back, but I am glad they've got it back. Thank goodness, because this film is not worth it. The book it may be, but the film, and also Never Say Never Again, the remake, they're not worth it. If it was better executed, if it was better filmed, better edited, then yes, it would be worth it. But the way it's presented here, it's not that worth it. Not to mention, some of the characters are a bit dull, and you could easily take out a couple of characters and just give some other characters more to do. Like, you got the character Pinder, he does barely anything. You could take him out and just give Paula and Q more to do. Easy, or I suppose Pinder does help Felix Leiter out a bit, but I suppose that you could have Q in that bit. Give Q some early field work experience before he comes back to help Bond in the field in Octopussy. That would have been good. So, yeah, some pretty terrible editing, and some characters felt a bit boring or underdeveloped, or could easily have been replaced by other characters getting more stuff to do. Thankfully, Connery does give one last great performance as James Bond before the next film in the series, where it's probably the worst performance of a Bond actor. And the next film is, of course, Unit Twice. However, we're not going to be talking about that next in this ranking. But suffice to say, Connery wasn't very happy making that film, and you can clearly show it. He clearly showed it on screen. It became his final film, and they got George Lazenby in on the Majesty's Secret Service. However, Lazenby left before the film was even released. He turned down a deal to do 6 more films, similar to how Connery turned down to do the 6th film. And so they had to find another actor, and United Artists were desperate to have Sean Connery back and made a deal with him for $1 million, I believe, or something for him. A big salary anyway. Big salary for Diamonds Are Forever. 25% of the profit, and 2 pictures greenlit by him. United Artists, that any 2 pictures he wanted to do, although he didn't do the second one because it was going to be Macbeth, and Roman Polanski, I think, was doing that one. Although maybe they could have asked Polanski if maybe Connery could have taken the main role. I don't know. But anyway, that's something for another time. If I rewatch that, I have seen that Macbeth film. If I see it again, I might review it. But anyway, back to the point. So Connery signed on for the 7th James Bond film to do one last one, discounting Never Say Never Again. And this was, of course, my number 5 choice, Diamonds Are Forever.
Diamonds are forever. They are all I need to please me. They can stimulate and tease me. They won't leave in the night. I've no fear that they might desert me.
Yeah, this one is a bit better than Thunderball for the fact that it's much better filmed and edited. Guy Hamilton's back directing. And whilst I think, no, this is not my least favourite of his directed films, there's one more coming up in the Roger Moore era that's weaker. He does tune Connery into with Moore. I think his best and worst ones are both Moore ones, but okay. Diamonds Are Forever, I think Hamilton does a good job with the directing, and I think there's a pretty decent script from Tom Malkovich and Richard Maybaum. Malkovich? I'm not quite sure. However, it does feel like the precursor to the Roger Moore era. I have heard arguments that some of the sillier areas of Bond did come in You Only Live Twice. More outlandish stuff started around then, more so than what you'd have in typical Bond film. But Diamonds Are Forever definitely feels like the precursor to some of the later Roger Moore films, being a bit more silly and camp in areas, and not really following from Majesties that much, besides wrapping up the Spectre Blofeld story for now. I will say this, though, it is a really entertaining film. Jill St. John is great as Tiffany Case, and whilst I think she is a pretty tough character earlier on, it does kind of diminish a little bit, and she does become a bit of a ditzy character afterwards. Not dumb, just a bit clumsy in places, but she's still really fun in those scenes, and still a really likeable character, and John does a brilliant job in the film throughout. And I will say this, they did try to make a strong character out of her pretty early on, like with Pussy and with Tracy, although the character did get a bit more ditzy later on, as I said. But you get scenes like the bit where she's pointing a machine gun up in the air and falling off the crane into the water, which creates a couple of laughs. Then, okay, I'm not going to complain that much. It's the best of both worlds. Wow, I wouldn't say not the best, but it's a decent compromise. Similarly, I actually like Charles Gray's Blofeld. He's a bit more camp than Blofeld, but to be honest, I'm fine with that. In this film, it's a less serious film than the last two. It's a bit more of a pantomime. I don't think it's this is the Connery Bond pantomime. I think there's even more of a pantomime film coming up in the Roger Moore era, but this is definitely the Connery Bond pantomime film. And I think Charles Gray, in that case, is pretty well perfectly cast in that case. Although he did play a character in You Only Live Twice, but that character got killed off after literally only a minute or 2 or 3 on screen. So it's just as well they brought back Charles Gray for a much bigger role here. Maybe the producers just liked him and brought him back because of that. And you know what, I think Diamonds Are Forever is pretty good. It's just I think maybe if it was a little less humorous, maybe if it was a bit more serious, maybe the film would be a little bit better. Also, that moon buggy thing, oh god. I mean, actually, no. I think my problem with the moon buggy scene is actually the music. It's no music for the first half of the scene. Second half of the scene, it's got one of the worst John Barry Bond tracks. And I don't say that usually about John Barry. I mean, he did score about, 13 films? Russian Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, Majesties, this one, Man, Moonraker, Octopussy, 11 films. He scored 11 films. And I don't think this is his weakest score. I think that would go with Golden Gun or Moonraker, but definitely one of his worst tracks is that second half of the moon buggy scene. I think I'd be fine with it if it was a bit better scored. On the whole, Diamonds Are Forever is fine. It's not one of the best. I think it's fine. I just think it's fine. Could have been a bit better, but it could have been fine. Also, Connery's performance is much better than You Only Live Twice. It's not as good as his first 4 performances. You can tell in some cases he is having more fun again, but in other scenes he does look a bit bored. So it is kind of a mixed bag. But I think he does at least try this time, which is more than I can say for You Only Live Twice. Okay, so moving on to number 4. Number 4, now a lot of people are probably going to be annoyed of me for putting this one so low on the ranking, but you know, if this one is this low, then other films later on are going to be better. And although this one's considered one of the Golden Trio, I mean, we're going to have to go to the Golden Trio at some point. Even if it was number 3, we'd have to get to one of them at some point. I don't consider this one of the greatest of the series. I think I put it 15th overall at the moment, out of 24, on an overall ranking at the moment. And in the case of the first entries of a Bond actor, this is a first Bond film, it's my least favourite. And all the others are in my top 6 films of the series. So you all know what this one is. It's Dr. No. The very first James Bond film, but despite being 4th place in the Connery listing, as opposed to the other first Bond films, which are 1st or 2nd with their respective Bonds, pretty much first for all of them apart from Craig, where it's currently 2nd. We'll see what No Time to Die is like, but at the moment Casino Royale 2nd. In those cases, that means the other eras, the other films don't, apart from Skyfall in Craig's era, don't really live up to the first films of those eras. Not any, apart from Skyfall, none of the other films of those particular Bond eras, well, not really any choice in Lazenby's case, are as good as the first Bonds. You get, I mean, when we get to those rankings, you'll see where I put each one. But with the actors between Connery and Craig, apart from Lazenby because he only did one, other films that followed the first ones for those actors weren't as good as the first one. So you'll see that in the ranking. And with Craig, so currently Casino Royale is his 2nd best. And then apart from Skyfall, the rest are going to be after that. We'll see about No Time to Die. It could actually make Casino Royale go down to 3rd. With Connery, his first Bond film is 4th, which means 3 of his other 5 films that came afterwards are better, which means technically Connery had the best era in terms. So, to make up for Dr. No being so low on this list, I can say that Connery probably had the best era when it came to overall a number of films that he appeared in. Out of 6 films, his first one was my number 4 choice, which means 3 of them are better, which means compared to the other actors, he had more better films after the first film. To be honest, so there you go. So hopefully that makes up for it. Dr. No is a very good film, though, I will say that. I just don't think it's one of the greatest of all time. It definitely set up the series really well. Did a very good job. Connery is off to a flying good start here. Very good. Gets better as he goes along throughout the next 2 films, but he's definitely off to a good start here. I would say the same for all of the actors, apart from Lazenby, in their first films, and then they get better later on. Sometimes as we go along, sometimes it just at a later point. But definitely for Connery, we're off to a great start. And, I think the plot is simple, but it's good. It's enjoyable. Ursula Andress is good as Honey Rider. I wouldn't consider Honey Rider one of the greatest Bond women of all time. I don't think she's that good. I don't think there's enough of a personality to say she's the greatest or one of the greatest. But I do think she's good. And Ursula Andress does a great job in the role. Also, Jack Lord is one of my preferred Felix Leiters. Despite only being in the one film, he's probably my favourite of the ones who's only appeared in one film, that being said. And he does a good job. And Joseph Weissman does do a good job in his little screen time as Dr. No. The character is introduced a bit late. I know they might be trying to build him up, but he is introduced quite a bit late. Something that they will fix for later installments. But yeah, good story. There is a few editing hiccups here and there. There's a couple of jump cuts. I can put this down to more 60s editing, typical editing stuff, but they certainly iron out the kinks for From Russia of Love and Goldfinger. Plus, it's not nowhere near as bad as Thunderball. Nowhere near. And it's not terribly regular. It just happens a couple of times, and it's a bit annoying in places. Also, rear projection, background, probably got the worst use of it in, because they pretty much have rear projection background for quite a lot of stuff in the films, but I think the worst case is in the car chase in this film, because they could easily have gone and shot that on location. Easily. No problem, it just looks, it's so dodgy. They could easily have gone and shot that one out on location. It might even have been cheaper, probably, because they've got to film the car driving behind Connery, so it probably would have just been easier and cheaper to have Connery on location to film it. Well, I don't know about cheaper, maybe, but certainly easier. Just put the camera in front of the car. I don't know if they could do that at the time, but certainly they could have the camera in a truck in front of the car. So I don't know. It does look a little unconvincing with that rear projection background. So if it was just a normal background, maybe a little more convincing. But with how the other car is shot in the background, it doesn't really look that convincing. That means that when the following car goes over the cliff, down the cliff, and Connery has a funny quip about it. That's really good, and I like how Terence Young introduced Bond's quipping into the franchise. I think that helps bring out some of the film Bond's personality to the screen. That's an interesting idea. That was fun. So, Dr. No, I like it. I don't think it's one of the greatest, but I like it. Hello, everyone. Nick from a bit further into the future from when the original Connery, the second version was filmed, but I had actually realised my top three, the second and third places actually were in the wrong spot, so I had to change. I'm refilming this bit to have 3 and 2 swapped around, because actually my third on the list was actually supposed to be second, so I've had to change it around. This was a mistake on my part. I forgot the fact that what I placed third was actually a 10 out of 10. I thought it was a 9, but actually I placed it 10. Okay, so moving on to number 3, which was number 2 originally. Number 3 is is probably the one I enjoy watching the most, but it's not the best, and there is one or two issues that does knock it down from being a 10 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10. And this is You Only Live Twice.
You only live twice, or so it seems. One life for yourself and one for your dreams.
This film is really entertaining. Lots of really great stuff in it. Some great gadgetry. Some people may not enjoy it because it's a bit more comedic, a little bit more silly. Well, I say a little bit more silly. It's some more outlandish stuff happening in this film that will inspire more outlandish and silly stuff in the Roger Moore era. But I think it's still a really great film. Got some really great stuff. Some amazing cinematography and editing. Casting is great. The only downside is Sean Connery, because he wasn't feeling very happy with this one. Lots of problems, and it shows on screen. His performance reflects how he feels, and therefore he puts in possibly his weakest performance ever, or at least certainly for the Bond films. It's his weakest performance of a Bond film, and it's also the weakest performance of a Bond actor in a Bond film, which is a shame because it's Sean Connery, and he's usually delivers some of the best performances, but here it's one of the worst, well, one of the weakest, because he wasn't putting enough effort into it because he was no longer caring, which is a shame, considering before he came out for Diamonds Are Forever, this was a great film to end on. It's just a shame that his performance was not. It's the other way around with Diamonds. It wasn't a great film to end on, although a good one, but at least his performance was a bit better. But yeah, Connery didn't do a very good job here. I can understand him feeling frustrated and upset, but at least he could have tried to hide it, like he did with Diamonds. Because Diamonds, he at least looked like he was having a good time. But never mind. But the rest of the film is amazing. Great story. It does differ from the book, but I think this version is a bit better than the book version. Roald Dahl does a great job with capturing the spirit in the script, and does a really great job. And like I said, it looks amazing. Lewis Gilbert he does an amazing job in making his movies. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Spy Who Loved Me. I do like it. I do like it a lot. Not as much as about 16 other films in the series, but I do like it quite a bit. But yeah, he does a great job there. And whilst Moonraker is one of my least favourite films of the series, it at least looks good as well. So Lewis Gilbert, although his film's a bit all over the map for me personally, he does a great job making them. And yeah, You Own Her Twice. Personally, it's one of my favourites of the series. It's just a shame that Connery's performance wasn't very good. Number two, this film was previously third, but it's gone up because it actually turned out to be a 10 out of 10. And it's probably my least favourite of the 10 out of 10s, although there is about 8 of them. So it's probably 8th in a No Time to Die list at the moment. And yeah, this film is amazing. It overcame a lot of production problems that they had, a lot of editing problems. It overcame lots of problems making the film, and if they hadn't, then we would not have gone beyond a second film. The second film would have crashed and burned, and we wouldn't have a series anymore if the filmmakers had not succeeded in making this one such a great job, a great film, and they did it. They made such a great job with it, and yeah, really well. The second film, From Russia with Love, is my second choice. This one was originally third place on the list, and You Own Her Twice went second, but actually, it turned out I gave it a 10 out of 10, not a 9, and I think it's because I was being nice, because I thought it'd be 9 out of 10 normally, but because they overcame so many production difficulties, it deserved the 10, because it was such a great film when it was final film, so it got a 10 out of 10 because the filmmakers persevered so brilliantly. And yeah, I think I can safely say, because of that, they succeeded in making a brilliant film. Contrasting You Own Her Twice, Sean Connery does a great job in his second performance as Bond. You got a more colourful cast than Dr. No. They step up the themes and moods of the movie. It's just really great, and it's probably the most spy espionage film of the series, and the most Cold War of the series as well, which works really well with its 1963 setting, and some of the most memorable villains with Red Grant and Rosa Klebb, possibly the first main Bond female villain, really, if you count Rosa Klebb as the main villain, after Blofeld maybe. Otherwise, you have to wait until 1999 for your first main female villain, with Electra King in The World's Not Enough. But I think Rosa Klebb technically counts as the first female main villain of the series, both in the films and the books, I think. Yeah. Despite other henchwomen, but Rosa Klebb, I think, for books and films, is the first proper female villain, main female villain. Red Grant is technically the henchman, but he is probably he is one of the best henchmen, up there with Oddjob from the next film, and Jaws from the Roger Moore films. And also the best of the blonde, muscular, silent, although this one talks a bit more, henchmen that we see quite a bit of every now and again in the series. It's just really great stuff, and some really enjoyable moments, and the team did a brilliant job in bringing this film together, and made it work on so many levels. It's also based on my favourite Ian Fleming Bond book, so props for that, for them to be do a great film adaptation of that. And also, because this is early Bond, they actually keep pretty close to the original book, especially with this one, which is always a positive thing. So, From Russia with Love, successful, brilliant, amazing, and they overcame production difficulties that could have ruined this film if it was even finished. But thankfully, they succeeded, and because of that, the Bond franchise continued beyond this film, and we got after this my number one choice on this list, and most people's number one choice for film of the entire series. It's not my number one of the films overall. It's currently 7th in a pre-No Time to Die list. We'll see about post. But certainly up there. It's definitely one of the best of the series. And of course, my number one Sean Connery Bond film is Goldfinger. Goldfinger is a masterpiece in cinema, or at least 60s cinema. That's a fact. Sean Connery is at his best ever in this film. Best performance, possibly of his entire career, but certainly of Bond. And it's possibly the best Bond performance of all time. This or Daniel Craig in Skyfall, but it's probably this by an inch. Also got a fantastic supporting cast, including Gert Frobe, Honor Blackman, Harold Sakata, and some really great stuff. Guy Hamilton, fantastic director. I do prefer his next Bond film over this one, but only slightly. Live and Let Die. That would be my next on my overall ranking after this one, and then Diamonds and Golden Gun are a lot lower down. But Hamilton does a fantastic job here. He crafts an amazing film, and it's absolutely amazing. And I can tell why this one's considered the golden standard of the series. No pun intended. Or maybe it is. And it's widely considered the best film in the series by both fans and audience goers, although both would also say other films are up there as well, like From Russia with Love, for example, and Dr. No for critics, usually. Goldfinger is just a magnificent film. They just, again, a lot of fantastic effort. I think this one, from the sound of it, production issues were this was the one with the least amount of production issues. From what I've heard, others seem to have a bit more. This one, or maybe some of the Roger Moore ones in the middle of his era. Spy, after Spy, before A View to a Kill. But I think definitely this one has the least amount of production issues, to my knowledge. Which is good, because they just came off a very troubled production for From Russia with Love, and a very troubled post-production, and just before we got into the whole kerfuffle about Thunderball. So whilst the production on that one wasn't so difficult, the pre-production, oh boy. So Goldfinger managed to work really well, and it's definitely one of the best films of the series, and one of the best films of the decade, and certainly the best Sean Connery Bond film. It works on so many levels, and the fact that it's iconic raises its standards even higher, because if it wasn't so good, it wouldn't be as iconic as it is. So, yeah. So the iconic Goldfinger certainly deserves its number one Sean Connery Bond film position. Although I did say Year and Twice was the one I enjoyed watching the most, I think objectively, and to be honest, subjectively as well, Goldfinger is the best of the series. So that's it from my least favourite to favourite James Bond films starring Sean Connery as James Bond, and I will recap the list. Number 6, Thunderball. Number 5, Diamonds Are Forever. Number 4, Dr. No. Number 3, You Only Live Twice. Number 2, From Russia with Love. And number 1, Goldfinger. And like I said with Dr. No, because that one is 4th, not 1 or 2 or 3, that means that Sean Connery has more films that I prefer over his first film than the other Bond actors who are in the first or second, whose first films are either their best, or at the moment Daniel Craig is second best, but we'll see what happens with No Time to Die. So Connery technically has more better films coming after his first film than the other Bond actors. So technically he has the better era when it comes to post-first films in his era. So, yeah, sorry Dr. No fans if it's only 4th, but for Connery fans, you'll be glad to know it's probably the best era. when it comes to following films from the actors' first films, although Lazenby and Dalton didn't have much of a chance. Hello, Nick from Even Further Into the Future, quickly popping in. I previously put Never Say Never Again slightly above Thunderball overall, just because it was better edited. But that being said, actually I think Thunderball's got the better plot, or better version of the story. It's just poorly executed. But I'm going to slightly put Thunderball above Never Say Never Again now. So my overall Sean Connery ranking, now including Never Say Never Again, would therefore have Never Say Never Again just underneath Thunderball instead of just above Thunderball, which is what it used to be. So just popping in to say that and wrap up this ranking. So the ranking would now be 6.5/7 Never Say Never Again, 6 Thunderball, 5 Diamonds Are Forever, 4 Dr. No, 3 You Only Live Twice, 2 From Russia with Love, and number 1 Goldfinger. So yeah, I mean, it previously was Never Say Never Again was above Thunderball because Thunderball's editing is fucking shit. But I think everything else Thunderball does better. Well, maybe some cinematography, direction, shots, but I think most part Thunderball is better than Never Say Never Again. It's just the editing that fucking sucks. But I will slightly put Thunderball just above Never Say Again. I think they're both round on the same point because they're the same story. It's just that one is better executed than the other. But that being said, the executed one also tells its story better. It tells its story better. It's just the way that said story is executed in that version is worse. And Never Say Never Again's story is weaker, but it's executed better. So yeah, I think Thunderball would definitely have been a bit higher on this list if it wasn't so terribly executed. So that's it from me. Thank you for watching this ranking, and I'll see you guys next time for my top 5 George Lazenby Bond film moments. I'll see you guys then. Goodbye.
Pretty girl, beware of this heart of gold. This heart is cold. He loves only gold. Only gold. He loves gold. He loves only gold. Only gold. He loves
Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review, Shit. But the films we'll be taking a look are... but the films we will be... whilst Michael and Barbara were the producers on it. But the way it's presented here, it's not that worth it. It gives you some early fieldwork stuff to do before he goes out and do it. But we'll get to that. Moving on to number 5, following the next film, You Only Live Twice, and also On and the... That being said, she is still a hoot to watch. And I would say they at least tried to make a strong female character early on along the lines of Pretty Galore and Tracy, as opposed to someone of it. And you know, I think Diamonds Are Forever is well shot and well executed. But I wouldn't say it's one of the worst. I think it's actually quite fine. After Majesties, it does feel like... But yeah, I think it's... In other times, he is feeling a little bit dull, bored, or annoyed. But apart from Craig, they... from Lazenby to Brosnan, all of the other films after their first ones, well, all the other ones up with, well, but with the actors between Connery and Brosnan, and actually pretty well, and yeah, and there's only a few instances where it's now. We now jump. Okay, Bond Connery ranking continued. This is You Only Live Twice. Number 2. And probably everybody's almost everyone's number 1 choice. And it is, of course, Goldfinger. And considered the best of the series by many fans and or audience codes. So that's it from my Connery film ranking list. I'll recap the list one more time. Hello, Nick from Further Into the Future here. Just doing a quick change to the ranking, including Never Say Never Again. Previously, I had put the other, but it's just the way the story is executed is better. Is worse